That makes a heap of sense. And talking about you mentioned Beats Music, and of course, I guess everybody's happy with the deal that Beats Music is giving out because it's the same deal for everybody. So,
Yeah.
I mean that's kind of a groundbreaking thing as far as rates are concerned. But let's talk about that in a second. First of all, Darren, I want to ask you about the marketing side of things. The Beats rolled out an advert. We didn't manage to talk about it on the show because we had the Medium episode last week, and they rolled out an advert at the Super Bowl with Ellen DeGeneres, a massive thing. Spent loads of money. How do you think they're going about this rollout, and how do you feel about it right now?
I mean, I want them to succeed. I really do. But I must admit, I find their pitch a bit odd, a bit weird. I mean, we've talked about this quite a lot in the past, and especially around the whole aspect of music discovery and kind of, I think I've said a few times before that I think really most people just want to hear some music, and
Right.
the sad fact is that the majority of people just kind of want a good stream of music. They're not so fussed necessarily about these kind of very granular mechanisms to control what they discover and things like that, which I think is why radio, certainly in the UK, radio is absolutely the kingmaker and is the thing that can reaches that many people. It still has a huge effect, and in the States I think the pickup of more radio-based services, whether it was the success of Sirius initially or Pandora now, sorts of things, all suggest that really people, my view is people are probably just wanting some music, and they don't want to think that hard about what they get. And I think the things that Beats are pushing, like this kind of slightly weird wordy thing about I want to listen to something jaunty while I'm rowing through Venice in the rain or whatever. It's just sort of
the Mad Lib.
Yeah, it's just like I don't go running towards that thinking, oh my god, I've got to give that a go. I'm just sort of looking at it thinking, really?
Yeah.
It's kind of so. I think the reason I find it odd is because it's slightly at odds with the rest of the advertising and positioning. They've obviously spent a lot of money getting Ellen involved, and that whole ad was sort of involving her and was quite kind of light in tone and all these things, and yet it's Beats, and they maintain that there's this what they call prosumer sort of tier of market, of the person who likes good quality things and all of that stuff. But I think the other thorn in their side is that while they're sort of doing this with a 1 week free trial, Spotify and Audio promptly dumped all of the fees around access, and said, look, if you want to listen, if you're on a tablet, and God knows that, there's a lot of kids now waving around, Nexus 7s and, with the cheaper tablets that are flooding the market, and they've all got access to it when it's free. So I just worry about who they're talking to and how much those people are going to make a decision to use Beats when really at the end of the day, the couple of sort of big exclusive acts notwithstanding, these services are all fairly on the same level. The catalog is pretty much identical for all of them. The feature sets are just sort of how much you care, really. But I think in terms of which way people swing, I would imagine the number one factor will be, price and things like that. And at that point at the moment, Spotify are certainly appealing to the person that likes a bit of radio more, because they're sort of saying, well, you can have it with ads. And that's basically a radio experience anyway. So, a radio experience with a bit more choice sounds pretty good to me for nothing. And in the face of that, I just think Beats will struggle. And, the sort of grandiose gestures of, blowing $4 million or whatever it was on the ad thing just made me kind of sit there and think, well, are we meant to be impressed by that? I don't know. Like, I've seen no mention of a surge in signups post Super Bowl or anything else. I find it all a bit odd.
Yeah, again, it was another advert though where they didn't really explain what Beats does. It was a very nicely done advert, but it didn't really explain the service, which I guess makes sense because it's an entertainment advert for the Super Bowl. So I guess whether it's a cornerstone piece of an awareness campaign that's going to be ongoing for the rest of the year, and that sort of lays the sort of the grounds for that conversation going forward. But I don't think that based on that advert, people would go, oh yeah, Beats is a new streaming service that I'm going to be able to sign up to and all that kind of stuff. It wasn't clear.
Everything about it is just a bit sort of muddled.
Yeah.
Waving around Trent Reznor and saying, well, he's our creative director, and we pay artists very well, or we pay the rights holders, and the indies get all this stuff. But that's fantastic if, like us, you're involved in the music business. But the man in the street has sort of, over decades of piracy, has kind of proven that he doesn't really care a great deal about those things. It's not high on Joe Public's agenda to feel good that they're supporting a more ethical service, and so I just find it all a bit confused. I would like it to succeed. I mean, I think it's amazing that they're paying the same rates and they haven't tried to kind of screw over the indies and things like that. That is totally admirable. And they've got some really good people there. But
sure.
I just find it a slightly odd pitch.
And Cristelia, I want to hear your thoughts on a couple of things. First of all, how the hell did they manage to get majors to come on board with the same rate for everybody? Because that's certainly must have been a tough conversation. And so what do you think about that? And also, what do you think about the AT&T partnership on that front?
No pressure, Cristelia.
Right. Well, I can't speak directly to how they got the major labels on board, but I would suspect that having Jimmy at the head doesn't hurt. In terms of getting Universal on board. And as we've now learned, if Universal's on board, it doesn't take too much to get the other folks to fall in line. Just building on what Darren was saying, I think that what Beats is really going for here, to answer the question about the AT&T, is a bundled play. And that's where they're really distinguishing themselves from Spotify. And I think that AT&T is only the beginning. My impression is that the reason that the Ellen DeGeneres commercials kind of was like it was, and we might agree, it's kind of a family-friendly commercial, not only because it was done during the Super Bowl, but there's like the Three Little Bears, and we had Daddy's music, and we had Mommy's music, right? And that's not an accident, right? They want families of 4 or 5 who have AT&T accounts. It's $15 a month for up to 5 people to be on the service. So while it's not free, it's practically free. It's as close to free as you can get if you get 5 people on there. And I think what Beats is making a bet on is not the freeloading teenagers with their tablets who want free, service where they take an app to. They want the families who don't care about an extra $15 a month on their phone bill, which is already several $100s for the kids and their texts and whatnot, to get on these services. They're really making a bundling play. So, AT&T for now, but once they've got Verizon and Sprint and T-Mobile and so forth, an extra $15 on everyone's, account. I wouldn't be surprised to even see individuals eventually just kind of getting on there, and you want to throw $15, that's like tax, fine. Then I have Beats on my phone, and it seems like it's free to me because I'm paying a phone bill. I'm not paying a Beats bill. I remember when I was doing digital strategy, a big part of this whole bundling thing was because no one would know they were paying it, right? That's the beauty of the fees. So there's like a music fee, but it's part of the phone bill. And if you have any sort of qualm with it, you feel like you have a qualm with AT&T, not with Beats, right? And I think that's the big bundling play. So, I think that they're going for families and they're going for bundling. They want people to be maybe paying for these services without even realizing that they're paying for them.
Yeah, Kareem, what are your thoughts on Beats and the strategy and their marketing so far?
Yeah, I think what Cristelia just said is really, really interesting, especially about the family plan. I mean, because that delivers a nice message about music as well, doesn't it? It does actually make the cost seem much lower, and it delivers a message as, music is for the family, it's for everyone. We're opening it up here. Netflix have done interesting stuff with that as well, which has brought a lot of people on board, as far as I understand. I wonder, I've just been thinking, is what we're talking about at odds with their basic brand strength? That's interesting to me, because what I was going to give a nod to, perhaps, is Beats, let's not forget, it does have that cool image to do with the ambassadors and to do with the headphones and the music equipment. It's got basketball players on board doing a lot of curated playlists. So that is a strength for the service, and we shouldn't underestimate how much that appeals to the kind of cool consumers who want the trainers, who want to buy into that stuff. And we've all said that, we've all been aware from that for the beginning. But I actually asked back to you guys, what do you think? How does that fit with the Ellen advert? Does that actually go hand in hand, or does that confuse the image a little bit?
Well, I mean, this is the problem, though, and going back to Cristelia's point as well about bundling, this has been done in the UK, and Deezer did all this, and it
and
really
audio as well. Yeah,
it didn't get a huge amount of traction at all, and it kicked off a huge fight with Deezer about, they promptly claimed that they had X many users, but when the questions were asked about how many were kind of actively using the service, everyone everyone suddenly went quiet, because you were bundling it in. But, and when it is a bundle such that you literally just get it for free because you're paying your regular way, then I think what you're seeing is that people are getting it, but they're not valuing it because it's just coming with the service. But equally elsewhere, you're then seeing people not wanting to pay as much as, £5 extra a month for this stuff because they just don't value music that much. That's the sad reality of it, is we've reached that point where people kind of grumble. I sit around my friends and we all feel a bit sad about the fact that at some point charging, paying £10 a month for access to damn near all the music ever made is apparently too much. And people like me, when I used to work for Sony Music, I'd pop out for lunch when I lived, when I was working in Soho rather, and you come back from lunch with like 60 quid's worth of vinyl under your arm because there were so many great shops. And so it's, it's all very relative, but it is quite strange that, I don't think the bundling is like an absolute guarantee that people will go running towards it. And I do agree with you, Kareem, that I think as something that's always said that they aim for this prosumer level, if it's going to become a thing that kind of comes with a bunch of, mobile bundles or whatever, then yes, I think there's a very serious risk that it could then start to devalue it. And it also raises a question that I think Mark Mulligan was the first to kind of put forward, which was like, why have they not really sought to make a real connection with the headphones? Because at the moment, it's kind of like headphones are over there and Beats Music's over here. And I'm not seeing any kind of overt attempt to push the two together, but
that would be so strong. I agree with you that would be so strong, bundling it with headphones. Or they've got the link. What's the technology? Does it come embedded on the new Beats Pill, the actual service, in the same way that Spotify Connect works?
Possibly, yeah.
I think that may be interesting, yeah. But like you say, it's interesting they haven't aligned the headphones with the service yet. I assume they might.
It's gotta happen. It's gotta happen. I mean, that would be silly otherwise.
And it does raise another question, what you just said, Darren, about, well, how much are people prepared to pay for music anymore, full stop? And that's something Andrea raised at the beginning as well in one of the pieces. I think it's Mark Mulligan who was saying there's much less of a spend now, and he's analysed the different spends, and music is certainly getting squeezed. So I think that comes into play here as well. It is sad. We used to spend so much more on music, but how much are people prepared to spend nowadays, and what's it competing with? Is the big factor.
It's that £5 thing. I mean, if you're saying it's $15 for the family, well, equally there's things like Netflix and Love Film and all these kinds of video services that are asking similar amounts, and that's a family-wide thing because you're basically buying it for the household, if you like. It's something that you'd all sit around and watch or whatever, and they're seeing good traction, but by no means like a massive uptake either. So I think we have to be a little bit careful about prices and thinking, well, if it's this much, why wouldn't you? Because weirdly, people won't. I mean, God, you're in realms of literally, is it music for a month or a Starbucks? And it would appear that a lot of people would prefer the cup of coffee, which is kind of sad. But
this does link back. Yeah, and this does link back as well to the principle of wallet share as well. There was a PRS study that I think tracked music's percentage of the spend of each person, of wallet share, and it's just basically been decreasing steadily for many, many, many years. And that is one thing that streaming can bring back to the table. It can anchor music back in our wallets. As long as it does get to this scale, I think that's a very important thing that it can achieve eventually.
No, absolutely. And also, I think there's a very different scale of spend between the US and the UK. As Christella was pointing out, I think in the US, carriers and also cable companies have managed to keep prices very high up until now, both on broadband and on cable access. So as she was saying, for a family of 4 or 5, it could easily be like $300-400 a month spent on cable and mobile bills and whatever. So $15 is actually really not that much. In the UK, I think we have a different pricing structure now for this sort of thing, unless you're a Sky subscriber, heavy-handed on sports, and you spend maybe like £18-90 a month on getting the full package from Sky. But we're still not talking anywhere near as much as what it costs in the US to get a similar type of coverage. So I guess in the monetary sense, maybe in the US it's less painful than it is in the UK to add a $15 charge to the bill. But that's maybe just my 2 cents in it.